Good afternoon and welcome into Two-Man Game here on ClaimsOnline.com. I'm Matthew Roccio. That is the voice of the Billikens live from Richmond, Virginia, Bob Ramsey. Rammer, how you doing on this fine day? I hear it's beautiful in Virginia.
It's gorgeous in Virginia. We had shoot around today on campus. It's one of the prettiest campuses I've ever been on, at which I've ever been, seen, attended, walked on, whatever.
There you go.
It's pretty cool. It's a terrific building that has been an old building that had been renovated. It's all good in Richmond.
There you go. There you go. Well, we're here to talk about some St. Louis basketball. Obviously, they have the game tonight, 6 p.m. on your television or on KMOX, where you can hear Rammer and our good friend Earl Austin. And so we got a game to talk about tonight, obviously. But I also needed to get into and talk to you about the game over the weekend, the win over Duquesne, because we were talking after the game, and you were like, okay, we have to talk about this because this is the most insane game I've ever seen in my entire life. Rammer, let's dive just kind of right off the bat. What about this game was so crazy? What did you need to talk about immediately after this game that was so wild?
Well, there's several things. And by the way, backing me up, I talked to Travis Ford about it today, and he agreed he'd never seen a game like it statistically in his life. So
that's fair.
So you're a team built on three-point shooting, and you make 1 3. You're a team that doesn't force turnovers. You force 16 turnovers.
Pretty good.
Okay. You miss 10 free throws. You do a terrible job at the free throw line.
Mm-hmm. Also not great.
And you win the game. And so how did you win it? Well, how is that possible? 1 for 6, 1 3. Well, you scored 70. Yes, 70 points in the paint. 70 for a team that really only has one forward on the whole team. Well, one forward spot that Okoro, Forrester, and Cisse all play a 5. Let's be honest, there are no real fours.
No.
There are no forwards. It's all guards after that. And
the only differentiation, this team has a point guard, guards, wings, and a center. Like, those are the 4 positions in SLU basketball.
Great. That's an excellent point. That's the delineation.
Mm-hmm.
When they set up a play, there are 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, but they're not defined beyond the numbers in the traditional way. You're 100% right. So you score 70 points in the paint, and for a team Duquesne that forces a ton of turnovers, you only turn it over 13 times, and only 5 times in the second half.
Just under that magic number. And that was the big difference. The 7 turnovers in the first half versus, or I guess it would 8 in the first
7
half.
7 6, 8 and 5.
Or 8 and 5, you're right. 8 in the first half as opposed to 5 in the second half. That's a huge difference there. But again, we talked about it in the podcast before. 14 is where things go bad. And Duquesne was forcing, 18, 17, 20 turnovers in games coming into this one consistently, game after game. And so to not hit that number and to really put the clamps on it in the second half, that was huge for St. Louis.
Well, and look at it this way. In a 5-point game, and by the way, God, I had it figured out. It was, I don't know, they went on like a 15-5 run to end the game, they being Duquesne. So what if you turn it over one more time, and let's say you miss a 2, and they come down and hit a 3, 5-point swing, you're tied.
And that's kind of, and that's the big thing I think that was my takeaway as we kind of move away from the crazy stats and my takeaway from the game. And this gets back to the question I was asking before last game, and then I'm going to ask every game leading up to the A10 conference tournament. Did St. Louis get better? Did they prove something to you in this game? And undoubtedly, when you hear Travis Ford in the postgame talk about how much, that they got hit in the jaw, and to see them come back from that kind of loss or that, that immediate kind of deficit and win a game like that was just a huge thing for him to see. And not only because it's hard, but because we haven't seen it many times in this SLU season. They seem to take punches and then just kind of, go with the flow in that game from there on out. And so right off the bat, that I saw something from St. Louis. They got better in that win against Duquesne. Maybe they didn't shoot the ball very well, but first of all, statistically, if you just want to be, surface level, 28 of 33 in shots at the rim. Or layups at least. That's ridiculous. I mean, you talk about two things.
Nobody does that.
Yeah, you talk about two things that got them early in the season: rim shooting, shooting at layups, and you getting a punch in the mouth and then not bouncing back. They did both of those things in spades in that game. They got better, in my opinion, in that game. That was a huge one. We talk about them building towards the A-10 tournament.
I was talking to some friends the other day, and they really didn't get it, so I let it go. And I'm not a genius. I'm not a coach, but I really do try to learn. And I tell you, when people, and hopefully we'll get people interested in this kind of minutia that really matters, at least in my view, and I know you agree. We had, and Earl made the pick while I was yammering away on the radio. We had Larry Hughes Jr. on as our player of the game. That's a game where Jimerson had 28. Pickett, by the way, was marvelous off the bench.
He was
6 of 8 plus 3 assists. Francis Okoro with a double-double. Yuri Collins just missed a double-double. So of all those things happening, Larry Hughes, 4 points, 1 rebound, 2 steals. 17 minutes.
It's a perfect game for you can't look at the box score and take any actual, heft from it. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead and talk about what you saw from him in that game.
His savvy, his understanding of how to play the game, well beyond his years, his athleticism and length in a different way. So I'm going to take what we loved about Larry Hughes and what he did to help the Billikens win, and I'm going to turn it around and throw it at you as a question. In a different way, is he giving the Billikens what they missed with Fred Thatch?
Yeah, I think so. I think definitely defensively, and heck, you think about him being a secondary ball handler. That was a big part of Fred Thatch, and I think we saw that. The big one that I threw out on Twitter, and it's still just, I think it's unbelievably huge. He goes in for Yuri for a couple possessions when SLU's leading by 1. And by the way, there was a few possessions later where it was 65-61, and Larry Hughes is bringing the ball up. I just step back a minute. That is a walk-on freshman carrying the ball up in a 4-point conference game while you're fighting for a top spot and a double bye in a conference tournament that is your only path to the NCAA tournament. Just that moment hit me, and I was like, the amount of trust that Travis has in him in this moment is either going to be so damn respectable and commendable or so misplaced that we're going to have to talk about it one way or the other. And God willing, Larry Hughes proceeded to ball out defensively, and this is a solid glue guy the rest of the game. They brought Yuri back in. He flipped over to the 2, one of the guard spots, and the Bills went on a 23-13 run over the next 7 or 8 minutes. And he played about 10 straight minutes. They rolled with one lineup for about 10 minutes. When you're in the moment, it feels like, okay, well, we're just watching a basketball game. And you step away and you're like, well, I don't want to be too much of a homer about it. But no. That's an A-10 basketball team having a walk-on guard play huge minutes in a crucial game where they had clawed back by 13 down. We can't minimize how impressive that was for the Billikens, but also for Larry Hughes Jr.
Yeah, and everything you say is 100% correct. But if I can nitpick for just a second, really more for the edification of our audience.
Pick a nit.
Not you, but for our listeners, technically, absolutely, Larry Hughes is a walk-on. But he is a scholarship talent. When you're, and I don't want to get into personal stuff, but when your dad is worth $100 million or whatever it is, it helped the team bring him on as a walk. And there's no doubt in my mind that he'll grab a scholarship at some point. He could go a lot of places, almost any place, and be a scholarship player. So you're technically correct, but I just want to note that because I know some people.
But even as a freshman, you go back and take everything I said and just put in the phrase "true freshman" instead. And it stands. It's the exact same thing almost. You don't get the walk-on aspect, but still damn impressive for that to be happening.
I just wanted to point that out to save some people some time on Twitter ripping SLU for not recruiting. Look, they got to play a walk-on. that's not really the deal. It's not really the deal. But I appreciate your passion to take shots.
That's a weird
not
takeaway.
You, the listener.
Yes, of course. That's a weird takeaway for asking me. Well, Rammer, we were talking about them taking a punch in the jaw. We were talking about Larry Hughes being a big player for them defensively. Those are two things that very well might come big in tonight's game when they face off against the Richmond Spiders. It's an away game that's kind of been a bugaboo for the Billikens this season. So right off the bat, your thoughts on this Billikens-Spiders matchup?
One thing that's hard to measure, but you know what's going to be there, and that is Richmond emotion. Their head coach, Chris Mooney, who is a great coach and a wonderful guy, really one of the good guys in the business. It was discovered in a checkup that he's got a serious heart problem that he didn't know about. He's undergoing surgery. I think it could even be today, but one day this week. He will not coach anymore this season. So you have to be prepared for a supercharged, high-intensity, emotional start to this game. You've got to be prepared for that. Now, could it be too much, and could it end up, pegging the other way and end up being a problem for Richmond? Yeah, it could. The point is, as the visiting team coming into that first game without their coach, you got to be prepared to weather the storm. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is Richmond was a team that had a starting lineup together basically for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. We talked about it in the past. The last couple of seasons, I felt like they stagnated. They didn't get any better. And then at the very end, they make a 4-win and 4-game run, sort of like, remember how we used to play? This is us, and got into the NCAA tournament. So a tip of the cap, but this is a different looking team. There are some names there that are the same, but it's not that same group starting. To me, it's a strange team. Their top 4 scorers are forwards. Their top assist guy is a forward, is a center, actually. He has the most assists. Their forwards play like guards. Everybody shoots threes. They're back to what they'd gotten away from a couple of years, and maybe that's why they stagnated at Richmond. This year they've gone back to more of a true Princeton, hard, constant back cut offense, and they've got 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guys doing it the whole game. They can present real problems. I think they're 11-3 at home. It's a number kind of like that. They'll be a handful. There's no doubt about it. Their problem is, for whatever reason, they can't win on the road.
Yeah, they are. Let me see if I can find it here. They lost to George Washington, LaSalle, Dayton, UMass, St. Bonaventure. Their only win on the road in conference appears to be at Davidson earlier in January. They beat them by 4. That is their only road win, it looks like, this season.
So too bad they didn't come to St. Louis this year. So we're here. It's a great building, as I mentioned when we first started. There'll be a good crowd. There'll be a lot of emotion for Coach Mooney, as there should be. And to reiterate and repeating what Travis told me, this game might be about the first 5 to 10 minutes in weathering the storm.
That's going to be interesting, yeah, because if they come out and punch them in the mouth, can they bounce back a second time in a row? That's going to be difficult. Rammer, I was very wary of the size advantage that Dayton had, and obviously that game didn't go St. Louis's way. But rewatching it, I don't think it was because of Dayton's size necessarily. So is it fair that I'm worried about the size tonight?
I am. That's why
because
one thing.
I mean, with all that cutting, and again, they don't have a dominant, like they don't have a dominant ball handler, but they move the ball well because of that offense. With all that size, I'm just worried. The first 5 minutes are going to be important, but not necessarily the score. For me, the first 5 minutes, but one of the biggest numbers might be Jake Forrester, Francis Okoro total fouls.
Well, yeah, it depends on if they're fouling on cuts to the basket and things like that, and help defense. And the other thing is they like to run the offense inside out. First pass typically goes to the big, and then he typically finds somebody open when help comes, and that's why their center leads the team in assists. They kind of go through him, and he distributes. The previous big man, Grant Golden, did that a lot, but this guy does it more from down low or lower. So this is going to be a look that we've not seen this year.
And again, people, how different is that size? Well, you look at their starting lineup right off the bat, and yeah, sure, point guard's 5'10", but then you roll into a 6'4" guard, a 6'9" forward, a 6'7" forward, and then a 7-footer, and they're pulling off the bench another 6'7" player as well. So the size is crazy, but here's what's even crazier, Raymers. I'm going to throw this stat at you. Richmond is the worst offensive rebounding team in the entire conference.
And they don't get a lot of blocks.
And it's not close.
And they don't get
it's
a lot
like
of
by 5
blocks
or 6%.
either.
So I wonder if there's maybe this idea of, size obviously in basketball is going to matter, but if you're a team that doesn't know how to utilize it, how dangerous is it really going to be?
Well, by saying they don't utilize it, they do win at home. They're doing it somehow. And like I say, their top guy is second leading scorer in the league and is really good.
Tyler Burton's a monster. Yeah, Tyler Burton's a monster. We know him. I think Quinn and Bigelow are both transfers, so they're big guys and they're a little new. But Burton's still there, and he just doesn't stop scoring.
And he's a matchup problem when you look at your personnel. Then the other thing is, well, good. I'm glad they're not great at everything. That's terrific. And so what do you have to do? You got to go back to who you are. Take a step back from Saturday. You did win the rebound battle. You got to do that. That leads to a question you're going to ask in just a second. Limit your turnovers. That shouldn't be a huge problem today, unless you get overly loose and aggressive, trying to do too many things. And you got to make your free throws. You didn't Saturday. And you've got to get back to being a 10 for 25 from 3-point range team. You got to get back to that, in my view.
Absolutely. Raymond, before we get to a very interesting stat and kind of a bigger question, I want to wrap up the kind of the Duquesne and Richmond portions here with a question I got on Twitter when I put out a tweet and was able to get a really good question in. The question was simply, can the Billikens, or how can the Billikens, might be a better question, how can the Billikens continue the crispness we saw in the second half against Richmond or against Duquesne? How can they bring that to a 40-minute performance against Richmond? Or can they?
Well, every team strives for perfection. Nobody shoots 100%. Nobody has 0 turnovers. So you just always are trying to get better. How do you get crisper? Don't turn the ball over. How do you make it look more crisp? Don't stand and watch. Don't be an anchor. Keep moving. If you keep moving, if you're playing well, the ball will find you. And unless it's an unusual circumstance, Yuri Collins will find you. So I think that too, again, go back to rebounds, because when you get the rebound, then you can move the ball. A defensive rebound, you can move the ball out. So a lot of times we think of defense, we think we're out guarding a guy. Okay, that's great defense. But the best part of defense is the last part, securing the rebound, securing the basket.
Absolutely.
Because you can guard your ass off for 28 seconds, and if they put up a bad shot because you defended well, but they get the rebound, you failed. So
there's nothing more deflating.
That's exactly right. So how can they be more crisp on offense? You got to keep moving and move the ball, and it always looks more crisp when you make shots.
Absolutely, it does. And again, we would just like one big change between bringing that crispness from Duquesne into Richmond. Some of that crispness needs to lead to 3-point shots. Not always,
right.
That's all we're saying. Just a couple 3-point shots. One more big thing I want to throw out to you, Grammer, and then we have our final little topic. Some great news if you're a St. Louis fan or an NBA fan or a St. Louis NBA fan, if you will. A stat that keeps jumping out to me, and I want to talk about it, is St. Louis has the lowest turnover percentage in the league. It's at 15%. Pretty much everyone else in the league is between 17 and 19%. Lowest turnover percent in the league. We know that that's not new. But what does fascinate me is that they are essentially tied for first in the A-10 conference with how many plays they get in transition. About 20%. They're tied with Duquesne and UMass, excuse me. And so my big question here is, Rammer, we always talk about how you can't play as fast as you want. This is a big preseason topic. You can't play as fast as you want if you're not getting the turnovers. So what does it say about St. Louis's offense, whether that be Yuri Collins or the scheme, that without a lot of turnovers, they're still able to get out in transition and take advantage of that so often?
Defensive rebounding. You've got only one big, and yet you win the rebound battle almost every night. Well, how does that happen? Because you get help on the boards. I wish I had more box scores with me, but you look up and down the lineup and everybody's contributing. And when Yuri Collins is in there getting a rebound or a quick outlet rebound, almost a touch pass outlet, we've seen it. He can eat up 60, 70 feet in one pass. So it goes back to defensive rebounding. I don't think there's any question about it. And then when you get a turnover, you get out and go. And so how you get that high percentage is by rebounding.
And kind of just a number for you really quickly. Usually every game they have about 5 to 6 guys getting at least 3 defensive rebounds per game. And because right now you have Okoro gets almost 6, Pickett, Forrester, Collins, Gibson get about 3 per game. And in conference play, TJ Hargrove is getting about 3 per game as well. So that you get about 5 or 6 guys getting 3 each defensively, like you said, it helps you control the ball. And then you combine that with a Yuri Collins, and then you combine that also. Gibson is sneakily extremely good at leaking out at a good time.
Oh yeah.
To get down in transition, both for layups, which he's been doing lately, but also get himself out in the wing so that he can then manipulate the defense with his 3-point shooting. It's something we know and talk about, but man, lately, especially in that game against Duquesne when he was getting a lot of those rebounds or those layups, he was leaking out perfectly timed. It would go Franco to Yuri to Gibson, and it was an easy 2 every time. So that's something. It's an impressive thing that the offense can pull off in that way.
One of the great plays of the game was Yuri got the rebound, one pass about 70 feet, and then about a 28-foot 3. I mean, it was rebound, pass, shot. That quick, covered 94 feet, I guess, with the basket in. Be fair, 90 feet in one pass and one shot. It was amazing.
Which makes me think, I think the only 3 that Gibson made is one where he had to catch it here and then immediately shoot it. And I'm like, of course, that's the one that he just locks in and makes. Not the one where he gets to catch it and set and then go. It's the one that he bang, bang. It's like, okay, that's the one he makes, of course. Last thing here, and then we'll finish up the 2-man game. You have a game to go call, which is, we just want to throw out a congratulations to Jordan Goodwin. The Washington Wizards threw out about an hour ago that they are officially converting his 2-way contract into a 1-way deal. No more potentially getting sent back down to the G League. With this contract, if he does, he's still going to be making a little bit of money. He is now a full NBA contract player. So obviously, congratulations to Jordan. St. Louis put it out there, and it was the exact message you think. This is just an example of what hard work and determination can bring.
Yeah, fulfilling his dream. He was a kid while he was still in high school, coming to Billikens games, sitting right behind me, and he worked and worked and worked, and he's made himself into an NBA player. He's made himself into an NBA player, and so happy for him. And he got a standing ovation the other night. It was the All-Star break, and he was in St. Louis at the Duquesne game. The St. Louis fans love him and root for him, and I saw a lot of response from DC fans, how excited they are. They appreciate great basketball and guys who will do the dirty work, who will defend and rebound and get assists and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, you're right. Very excited for a terrific guy. And, well, I guess I'm missing somebody. My 3rd NBA player in my time with the Billikens, Bonner, Hughes, and now Jordan Goodwin. I guess Willie Reed got a cup of coffee, a 10-day contract once.
Yeah, he did.
So
he
4.
did, yeah. And isn't he coaching now?
Pretend we're on trial and you're a lawyer. Don't ask a question you don't know the answer to.
That's fair. My bad. Sorry.
Because I don't know it either.
It popped in my brain. I was like, I thought I saw that name pop up. But anyhow, Rammer, you got to go call Richmond basketball. So we're going to let you get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us today on the two-man game. Before we go, I want to tell everybody, it doesn't matter where you bought your car. It matters where you get car service, though. I always go to Munganess St. Louis Acura. See if I can get the point right the first time. It's going to be this way. Yes, I got the point right the first time. We're kind of down a little bit. Yes, I got it right the first time. So it's Munganess St. Louis Acura. I didn't get my car there. I'm going to be getting my next one there, but that's where I take it to get serviced every time I have an appointment right now. And my favorite thing, because I'm a millennial who hates talking on the phone, is that I can go online and book it without actually having to talk to a human, which is fantastic for me because my generation's terrible at things like that, and we need to get better at it. But you don't have if you hate that, Munganess St. Louis Acura has you taken care of. Just go on the website, book it, makes it so much easier. You take it right in. Jump on out. They handle it for you. If you need to keep going and you got a busy day, they can figure out a loaner car for you that day. They're the absolute best there. So thank you so much to Munganess St. Louis Acura. And, of course, thank you very much to Bob Ramsey. Bob, you have a great game tonight. We will talk to you later. And thank you very much, St. Louis. Have a great rest of your day.
From our roots in St. Louis, Royal Banks of Missouri is branching out to continue serving you with our locations in St. Charles, Jerseyville, Granite City, and now in Hannibal, Center, and New London. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank in your community.